Chapter 031, The Core of the Jungle. Sophia learned even more about magic and also managed to further bond with it. She also gave it free rein over her domain to let them add whatever they wanted to it. It seemed like the particles, from the way they acted, were very happy about playing around without needing to recreate normal flora. The prospect of being allowed to create whatever they could think of made them very excited. As we're already relatively close after you two got lost, shall we continue to head towards the core of the jungle? Sophia, after having reunited with Fan and Maya, wanted to continue exploring after their break. I'm not against it. Fan was up for more. Same. Maya also nodded. Great. She energetically raised her arm high in the air. Let's go. The blonde then made a passage through the jungle using wind-based magic. Someone's in a good mood, huh? The wolf didn't fail to notice her excitement. Yeah. The cat girl nodded again. What did you do after you exiled us? She froze up for a moment to come up with an explanation. I played with magic? Luckily, she had no need to lie. Technically telling the truth while accidentally omitting some details was one of her specialties, after all. Oh, I see. As it didn't sound like anything out of the ordinary for Maya, she didn't feel the need to ask any more questions. By the way, the next time we leave, the Sophia tax of magic power left behind in my domain will be the absolute maximum to have barely enough left for the regular world. The blonde smiled at the duo. There's a little project I started working on, and there needs to be a lot more ambient magic around. Do I want to know? The cat girl wasn't sure how to feel about that. No, she shook her head. Just be assured whatever playful or ridiculous thing you'll do in the future, now that you stopped holding back, won't even come close to what I'm up to. Her expression turned complicated. Don't worry, it'll be strictly contained to my domain. Good. The outside world isn't ready for it, after all. Sophia's expression turned a little smug. Fan, remind me that I never ask what she's up to. The cat girl lightly rubbed her temples while looking at the wolf. And if I ever find out, remind me that I need to get Ari for a double punishment. Okay. He just nodded because he didn't want to get involved. Though, I am quite curious about hearing more. Fan then turned his attention to the blonde. It will be a while before I can reveal it. She lightly shook her head. It's too early for even the group to know. Even more curious. Even more concerned. The duo had very different views on it. Well, things will definitely be interesting in the future. Sophia smiled at them. Anyway, let's get going. She then started walking alongside the path she created. The trio kept exploring the jungle that Mera had gifted to the blonde for another hour and were slowly getting closer to the core. The plants around here sure are extra dense, huh? Maya couldn't help but notice that there really was no empty room between them anymore. I guess that's to be expected from the overseer of magic, huh? It surely is impressive. Fan nodded a few times. You do know that this area here is pretty close to where you and Ari had your, moment? The blonde looked at the cat girl. It's mostly your doing, because Myra's bit of the jungle wasn't nearly as overgrown as this. Maya averted her face. Though, I can't say for sure how the very core looks, because even I have a hard time getting a reading there. So it might be from Mera, after all. The cat girl raised her voice. No, there are definitely faint traces of Ari's and your magic inside the plants here. Sophia shook her head in return. She had the same reaction as before. The magic I'm sensing from further ahead, around the core, feels more neutral, though. Whatever happens, there is not your fault for a change. The tiger turned a little smug again. Hey! Maya glared at her. The last part wasn't necessary. It definitely was. She disagreed with her. Let's continue. Yes, I want to see what's going on there, too. Fan was also very motivated. Ugh. They kept going for another 30 minutes, and this time, it was Sophia's time to have the dumbfounded reaction. Well, that's indeed unexpected. The wolf was surprised, as well. Interesting. Maya, too, wasn't sure what to make out of the fact the group had stumbled into a small shrine of Kinnear right in the very core of the jungle. It wasn't anything fancy, just a stone statue of him between two small obelisk-like structures about 3 meters tall, but it was a shrine nonetheless. I think I'm starting to understand why Mera gave you this particular part of the jungle. You think? The blonde glared at Fen. She even said she gave me a bit extra because the jungle is so interesting in the area, she added. To be fair, Maya glanced at the shrine again. I think it is somewhat interesting. You think? Sophia then focused her attention on the cat girl. I disagree. You don't think it's interesting to find a shrine of Kinnear in the middle of a jungle you have been gifted by the overseer of magic? Fen could see why it would be interesting. I'm not talking about whether you enjoy it or not. The tiger went silent. The one thing is too much to make the other part viable, though. Did Mera ever mention that you'll like the extra? Maya tilted her head. Gore. She didn't appreciate that and ignored her. Then, the blonde walked closer to the shrine and lifted her hand. Immediately after, everything turned sparkly, and once it stopped, the shrine was gone. With that, the shrine becomes a problem of the regular world. No Kinnear shrines in my domain. I put it in the area we camped before. Clever. Fen liked her solution. I disagree. Another male voice joined the conversation and expressed his dissatisfaction with Sophia's actions. Sophia, Fen, and Maya had the exact same reaction when they turned around to look at Kinnear, who decided to join their party. It's lovely to see you all again, too. Slightly grumpy sounding, the man with the dark brown, unkempt-looking hair, seemingly in his 20s and giving off a rather unreliable feel, rolled his eyes after seeing how unenthusiastic they were. Why are you here? The tiger looked right at him. Mera said that no one can enter my domain unless I let them in. Like, just as an example, by pouring magic into one of my shrines and summoning? His expression turned smug. It was a common reaction that day. It's been a while. Kinnear seemed to be in a good mood. Although, I don't know why the statue was here. He seemed honestly surprised. If I remember right, this was Mera's. She got rid of it to annoy me. Sophia was not happy about it. Oh? His tone changed a little. That's not nice. It was a gift for her. Did she want that gift? Fen addressed him. This and that are unrelated. He turned his head away. Unrelated to that, it's not nice to re-gift presents. Especially not if the new receiver wants it even less. Sophia heartily agreed with his statement, though for different reasons. Is it really that unpleasant for me to be here, my dear? Kinnear then faced the blonde once more. This is my sanctuary. She raised her voice. It's supposed to be stalker-free. She didn't like the part where the male overseer enjoys watching her exploits. Don't worry, can't take a peek in here. He smiled at her. Even now that I'm here, I can only see the things directly around me like everyone else. And, right now, I can't say that's much at all. Kinnear took a quick glance at the thick undergrowth all around them. Not a great feeling to be this blind. Wait, does that mean I'm more powerful than you right now? The tiger's eyes started sparkling. See, calm down. He didn't like how excited she seemed while closing in on him. While I can't oversee this place, I still have all my other powers. Sophia looked incredibly disappointed while she also relaxed her clenched fist again. I thought this was my chance. Chance for what? He didn't like that, either. They get along splendidly as usual, huh? Yep. Fen and Maya just looked at their exchange with a warm expression. How did you come to that conclusion? The two didn't agree with that. Anyway, enough of that. Kinnear then decided to change the topic. Will Mera be around later? I'd like to have a word with her about getting rid of my shrine. Why would I rat out my favorite overseer? The blonde smirked at him. Hey. He tried to look extra hurt. The two kept bickering for a good while longer. As it was more than obvious that both of them were actually having a lot of fun while doing so, Fen and Maya had no intention of intervening and stopping them. Once Sophia and Kinnear had enough, the tiger invited him to the cottage with them. After all, while she has some issues with him, Sophia doesn't really hate him. Having saved her life and bringing her over to the new world definitely helped with that sentiment. Chapter 032, Shrine Dispute. The group finally made it to the core of the jungle, but Sophia was not amused by what they found there. It seems like Mera really gave her something extra when she gifted her the jungle, namely a shrine of Kinnear. Not happy with that in the slightest, the tiger immediately banished the shrine from her domain. While doing that, by pouring some of her magic into it, she accidentally summoned Kinnear himself, though. You're really invested in your domain already, huh? They had just arrived at the cottage after having taken a portal there, and Kinnear took in the sights once more. The jungle surrounding this area is especially ridiculous. One can really count on your absolute inability to hold back. She gave the blonde a thumbs up. Hey! She glared at him. Don't put me on the same level as Ari and Maya, okay? They're the ones who grew this jungle. I had nothing to do with that. Oh? He faced the cat girl. Really? Well, they kept teasing us about being the party poopers, so, as it's just Sophia's domain, we decided to go wild for a change. Hey! The tiger didn't like the just part. Now I'm even more upset that I can't peek into here. Kinnear didn't like having missed something entertaining. I'd love to see more of a crazy cat girl outside of this domain, too. You're in luck. Sophia smiled at him. Maya agreed to stop being my babysitter unless I seriously overdo it and will return to her usual playful side. Results of this is Exhibit A. She pointed at the jungle all around them. Oh. He liked the sound of that. I'm starting to have more doubts about that, though. Maya scratched her cheek. Being cheered on by this overseer makes me feel like it would be a bad idea, after all. She stole a glance at Kinnear during the last part. Oi. The catgirl momentarily forgot that he was quite an important person. Not that anyone else cared about that. Too bad you promised already. Sophia faced her with a grin. You'll lose all your credibility if you turn back now. I won't ever listen to you anymore, either. You listened to me before? The threat didn't have the expected effect on Maya. Where was I when that happened? The tiger needed a moment to come up with a comeback. Well, I super won't listen to you ever again. Nothing up to now will compare to the future. Don't you think you boosted her ego a bit too much? Ignoring her girlfriend, Maya looked at Kinnear again. Don't blame me for that. He crossed his arms. I may have helped her out at the start, but at this point, it's 100% her own doing. All I hear is excuses, and not wanting to take responsibility. The catgirl slowly shook her head. Who's the one that spent an entire year with her? You or me? I wonder what had the bigger influence on her ego. Kinnear turned the tables on her. I'm going to teleport both of you to random destinations inside my domain and make sure that neither of you can use any magic during the next 3 days I leave you there. Sophia did not enjoy their exchange. We're deeply sorry. They immediately apologized. Good. Her mood quickly improved again. Anyway, let's go and scare Anna and Ari. Maya couldn't follow her. They haven't met Kinnear yet. Her expression turned into a grin. I think it's time to change that. Oh, seems like the evening will be fun. The catgirl immediately liked the plan. And she made me responsible for Sophia becoming the way she is. The male overseer let out a tired sigh. Maya had no comeback for that. Anyway, sure, I don't mind meeting them. Kinnear had nothing against the plan. Once they agreed on the idea, the group finally entered the cottage after having stood in front of it for a while. Oi. Sophia went upstairs and knocked on the door of Ari's and Anna's room. Get dressed and come out. There's a guest I'd like you to meet, and being naked is not an option for that. Nothing happened for about 10 seconds. Thanks, we're good. Anna eventually answered her. We're not getting up today. What she said. Ari immediately did a follow-up. It's someone rather important, so it would be quite rude not to show up. No one is more important than the comfiness of this bed right now. The princess didn't care what she said. The jaguar repeated herself. I feel that statement on every level possible, but Sophia had a hard time to be convincing here as she follows the same philosophy. It's the most important person possible, though. Even if it would be Kinnear himself, I don't care. Ari raised her voice a little. Pfft. The blonde couldn't hold back her laughter. I love you. She was a big fan of the jaguar. Anyway, you have no choice. I'll give you a minute to get ready, or I'll come in and get you. I don't care if you're still naked by then. But. The couple didn't like that. The clock's ticking. Immediately after, all that could be heard for a little while was the rustling sound of bedsheets and clothes being tossed around and hastily put on. I hate you. Extremely upset looking, the two glared at the blonde as they opened the door. Happy to see you, too. She just smiled back at them. Who could be so important for us having to leave bed? Anna was in a bad mood. Exactly. So was the jaguar. My legs are still sore from yesterday. I want to lie down again. Same. Wow, you two are whinier than I ever was. Sophia just rolled her eyes. No, they did not agree with her claim. Ahaha. She decided not to go into details here. Anyway, let's go. She grabbed both their hands and dragged them downstairs. Slow down a bit. Ari's tired legs couldn't keep up. Also, how did you know we were naked earlier? She got curious about that part. I didn't, but thanks for the confirmation. Hee hee. Sophia liked her embarrassed expression. What? The moment the couple entered the living room and saw the special guest, their fatigue and grumpiness from having had to leave the bed were blown away in an instant. Instead, pure shock and confusion were written all over their faces. I am pleased to meet such lovely young ladies. Not bothered by their reaction, Kinnear greeted them with a perfect business smile. I hate how this guy can switch gears so fast. The blonde lightly shook her head. Shush. He glared at her for a moment before focusing on the couple again. There's no need to be so stiff. I won't do anything to you. Yeah, because I would punch you into a different dimension if you would. Sophia had no intention of staying quiet. Oi. Kinnear glared at her again. There was the slightest hint of being intimidated in his expression, though. You also warmed up to Mera, right? I'd like to get the same treatment because I don't enjoy those stiff formalities. But you're Kinnear. Anna had a hard time complying with his request. I definitely am. Sophia. Ari then faced the blonde. Why is Kinnear here? Her voice cracked a few times. Why is there another god here? As if Mera wasn't enough. Overseer. Kinnear and Sophia did not appreciate that. I am very sorry. She instantly apologized once she noticed the scrunched and disapproving expression of the two. Wait, why do you have the exact same expression, Sophia? Just because. She didn't feel like explaining it. Still, again, why is the greatest of overseers here? The princess tried to stay on topic. What did you do, Sophia? Why is it always my fault? Because it always is. Maya, Fan, Ari, Anna, and even Kinnear unionized. Hey! Her cheeks puffed up as she started pouting. I'm innocent. You did kind of remove his shrine and accidentally summoned him this way, though. Maya wasn't on her side either. That was an accident. The blonde glared at her. Also, Mera was the one who hid the shrine in there in the first place. Somewhat of a fair point. The catgirl was okay with that excuse. Nothing would have happened if you just let my shrine alone, though. Kinnear, on the other hand, was not okay with the excuse. There's just no way that would have been an option. Sophia vehemently shook her head. As I mentioned before, this is my sanctuary. And how would my shrine intervene with your sanctuary? Me knowing it's there is enough to interrupt my inner peace. You're the worst. Kinnear glared at her again. As if that's news to anyone here. She just rolled with it. No one had anything to add here. Could we stay on topic, please? Anna, once more, raised her voice. Why is the sea Kinnear here? Exactly. Ari nodded a few times. Well, accidentally summoning him aside, Sophia scratched her cheek before continuing. I think I already told you that Kinnear's the reason I ended up in the world where I met all of you, right? Every now and then, we meet up to have a chat and stuff. His kinks and the way he handles stuff aside, it's actually quite fun when he's around. I love you, too. He tried to sound as sarcastic as possible when smiling at the blonde. Afterward, while they continued to bicker a whole lot, the duo explained what was going on in the most illogical way possible. Chapter 033, Playful and Obnoxious. After accidentally summoning Kinnear into her domain, Sophia brought him with them to the cottage and introduced him to Anna and Ari, who had yet to meet him. Naturally, meeting the overseer, the royal couple was more than flabbergasted and needed a good while and an extended explanation to wrap their heads around what was happening. I still can't believe we're in the same room as Kinnear. Anna had calmed down a lot, but she still couldn't help staring at them while the group was sitting down on the sofas in the cottage's living room. Yes. Ari just nodded a few times. It feels like you two took this much better compared to back when you first met Mera. Maya noticed a slight difference in their reactions towards meeting the overseers. It helps that Kinnear has this sloppy and unreliable feel to him, doesn't it? Sophia's expression turned into a grin while she faced him. Is it just me, or are you extra moody today? The male overseer wasn't the biggest fan of her teasing. I wouldn't go there if I were you. Finn suddenly raised his voice as he remembered his conversation with the catgirl over why the tiger was behaving so all over the place during their exploration. Even for her, that is. Oi. Maya immediately glared at him. Do I want to know? The blonde looked rather confused while she looked in their direction. No, both shook their heads. MHMR and Sophia felt like she didn't like their exchange. Ah, I see. Kinnear seemed to have connected the dots. Not wanting to be punched into a pixelated red pulp, he naturally didn't say a word, though. Anyway, the blonde didn't want them to continue, so she got back on track and focused on Anna and Ari again. I'm sure it's because of how he looks, right? The couple went silent for a moment and stole a few glances at the overseer before Ari eventually spoke up. Well, the Kinnear statues in the shrines definitely give off a way different feeling than the, real one, but not in a bad way. I guess? Definitely much more approachable. Yes. Anna nodded a few times. Neither father, the school, nor anyone else ever mentioned anything about this, more casual look, but I like it. Still, while you're obviously the same person, your statues and portraits look very different. How many drawings, statues, or other depictions are there of tigers? He just looked at the royal tiger princess. Fair point. She could follow his logic. I have about 3 million pictures of Ellie on my camera. Sophia interrupted them. Official works. He rolled his eyes. From this world, too. I guess. Anyway, Kinnear then smiled at Anna again. Maybe don't use Sophia as a benchmark, but in general, as most overseers, I don't enjoy being treated as special. It's understandable that this needs some time, but there's no reason to act any different with me around. I'll try. She reacted with a big nod while Ari also moved her head up and down a few times. By the way, being happy enough with their reaction, the overseer changed his attention to the blonde once more. Has Mera mentioned when she'll be here? There's still that bone I must pick with her, after all. Are we going to have a fight of overseers? Shall I prepare popcorn? HHUH? Ari and Anna really didn't like the sound of that. I wonder if my domain survives the war between two overseers. EEH? The couple got even louder. Shush already. Kinnear rolled his eyes. I just want to know how my shrine ended up here, . Ah, I see. Ari was relieved to hear that. They kept chatting for a good while longer, and Sophia also explained where Steph, Chloe, and Aura were, as Anna and Ari had slept through that bit happening, but after around an hour, things got even livelier. Ah. Mera had returned to the blonde's domain, and her expression turned quite awkward once she noticed that Kinnear was also there. A good day to you. Faye, who had arrived together with the teal fox, lightly greeted him like it was the most normal thing for her. A good day to you, too. Kinnear smiled at her. It's been a while, hasn't it? It certainly has. She reacted with a slight nod. Afterward, the foal left Mera's side and sat down on the ground next to the big sofa where Sophia, Maya, Anna, and Ari were sitting on. Why are you walking away from me? Mera did not like her reaction. I have no intention to be in the blast zone, you know? It seemed like she already knew what was going on. I told you this would happen sooner or later. As we're talking about Sophia, it obviously ended up being sooner rather than later. Hee hee. The blonde took it as a compliment. So, what do you have to say in your defense, my highly regarded colleague? He turned uncharacteristically serious. Well, Mera awkwardly scratched her cheek. I thought it would be a fun prank. Huh. The seriousness was instantly gone. I can't fault you for that. Kinnear nodded a few times. Why did I not see that coming? Faye let out a sigh. I hate overseers. Hey. Mera didn't like that either. So you didn't want to get rid of my shrine, but playing a prank on Sophia was more important, huh? Oh, I absolutely wanted to get rid of it. Mera smiled at him. I know that. He rolled his eyes. You could have just played along. You know that I'm an honest person. Ah, is that so? Kinnear didn't believe her. Absolutely. Why do I not believe you? Trust issues? She just smiled back at him. I wonder why. He got louder again. They got along surprisingly well, huh? Maya leaned to the side to address Faye next to the sofa. Why do you think it's surprising? She couldn't follow her. They're both stupidly playful and obnoxious. Fair enough. There was little Maya could say here. Hey. Both overseers glared at the duo. That's also why those sisters have such good aptitude to overseer powers. The foal then stole a glance at the blonde tiger. Especially that one. Hey. A third complainer joined Mera and Kinnear. I can't fault her for that observation, though. The full overseer suddenly synced up. Oi. The half one then glared at them instead. Not cool. Oh, overseers are way different from what I've imagined. Anna eventually joined the conversation. I mean, we already got to know Mera by now, but the Kinnear seems to have a similar personality. Yes. Ari nodded a few times. It's quite the shock that overseers are so, like you all are. Hey. They stared at the jaguar with a stern expression. For some reason, Sophia had joined the duo, as well. I am very sorry. She immediately apologized to them once she realized her casual rudeness. Wait, why are you having the same reaction as them? Because you compared me to them. I saw you glancing at me when you made that statement. The blonde pointed at herself and then at Kinnear. I'm the most offended here. Being compared to him. That's not nice. Mera was the one who got upset first. Yes, you're the close second on the list to be offended here. Sophia wasn't going to step down more than that. Ari, you better apologize. I hate you. The jaguar had no intention of doing that. I very much agree. Kinnear had the same opinion and smiled at Ari. Anyway, enough of that. The blonde didn't want to continue the topic. Though, my dear Kinnear, how about giving Mera an extra big and fancy shrine of yours, to make up for the lost one? I think that's only fair. Best idea you had today. Worst idea you had today. Kinnear and Mera had different opinions on the matter. Since when do you hate me? The teal fox then stared at Sophia. Who's the one that snuck his shrine into my sanctuary first? She stared back at her. It's only fair that you get to suffer a bit here. Could you two stop making it sound like my shrines are the worst things in existence? The male overseer was not a fan of their conversation, but they are. The duo was getting along great, all things considered. I think Sophia will also get a new shrine. He had enough. One that is immune to all sort of tinkering, including applied magic, once it's placed. NOOO. Serves you right. Kinnear greatly enjoyed their reaction. I'm sure there's something we can do against that atrocity later on, right? We have to give it our best. The blonde tiger and teal fox only ended up bonding more over it. There's just no way I'm going to accept it just like that. Good. Afterward, they kept chatting for a good bit longer, mostly Sophia and the overseers bickering over pretty much anything, which thoroughly destroyed any bit of awe that was left in Anna and Ari towards the overseers. Some time later, Chloe, Steph, and Aura also returned after having put a pause on their hobby for the time being. Chapter 034, New Possibilities. Sophia and Mera were hating a little too much over Kinnear's shrines, which made him a little upset. To pay them back for all the sass they gave him, he decided to gift each an extra fancy shrine that couldn't be removed from their domains. Naturally, the two girls weren't the slightest bit happy about that. Would you look at that, a wild Kinnear? Aura, Steph, and Chloe had returned to the mansion, and the wolf was the first to greet him. What brings you here? Long time, no see. The other two followed right after her. It's good to see you again, too. Kinnear simply smiled at them. Afterward, as the female wolf had asked, he briefly explained to her how he ended up here. Oh. Aura seemed to like the story. It seems like everyone had a lot of fun today, huh? Debatable. Sophia, Maya, Fan, and Mera had mixed feelings on the matter. After all, the trio went through a lot, and the teal fox didn't end up being scot-free either. I'm super envious that you all went on an adventure without us. Steph didn't like that so much happened without her being there, too. To be fair, we had our own adventure. Chloe wasn't upset about it. That's true. The dog quickly cheered up again. Oh, speaking of. Sophia. That's my name, yes. The blonde looked at her little sister. What can I do for you? Your domain is broken. My domain is broken? She looked quite confused after hearing that. Right. Chloe joined in on Steph's complaint. While we were designing the eternal kingdom of ice and coldness, a ton of half-burned leaves and sticks suddenly appeared out of nowhere. It was so much that it completely buried us. You have no idea how much that surprised me. Ah. Sophia scratched her cheek. My domain's fine then. Maya did that. Huh? The duo then stared at the cat girl. Don't believe her. She's the one who sent it to your location. Ah, that makes more sense. Steph and Chloe could believe that much more. Oi. The blonde glared at the cat girl. You're the one who burned down half of my jungle, cleaned it up with air magic, and then made me teleport everything to where the two were. I may have done it, but you made me do it. I even only realized halfway through when you were guiding me. It's hard to come up with anything to refute that. Because it's the truth. She just glared harder at the cat girl. You weren't against it, though. I never said I was. Sophia also had fun doing it, after all. I'm confused, but I seriously hope to see more of this Maya. Steph wasn't exactly sure what was going on, but she was a fan of the playful cat girl. Wait up just a moment. It seemed like Sophia had just noticed something else. Something of utmost importance. Eternal kingdom of ice and coldness? She remembered Chloe's earlier description. Is it just me, or is that horrible project sounding increasingly grand with each mention? Because it is becoming grander with each passing moment. Exactly. The duo seemed to be having a great time with their project. I need to make sure to fence off their area so that it doesn't spread too much. Where's the fun in that? Steph didn't like her sister's idea. Where's the fun in an ice kingdom in the first place? Where do you want me to start? The part where you stop. The sisters very much disagreed on the topic. Hee. Aura, how is your project coming along? Sophia decided that it was best to simply ignore Steph for the sake of her own sanity. I like your idea a little better, after all. Well, the pines haven't grown yet, but I have a great feeling about it. The wolf seemed to be in a good mood. I spaced the saplings out and gave each of the three a third of my raw magic. I'm totally empty right now. I can't wait to see them all grown up. You used your entire internal magic on 3 saplings. Mera's eyes grew wide. I sure did. Aura just reacted with a big nod. Oh. The teal fox awkwardly scratched her cheek. I love this group. The other overseer was enjoying himself, though. What's up with those reactions? Sophia immediately got concerned about her domain again. Don't worry, it's fine. Kinnear smiled at her. I've never been this worried in my life. It was a big red flag to her. Hey. Aura, my dear, how far away from each other are those saplings? Mera faced the wolf instead. A couple 100 kilometers, I guess? She tilted her head. I had quite the workout to space them out. I didn't want a massive center that gets gradually lighter, like the jungle here. I want a forest that's the same density everywhere. Phew. The female overseer looked visibly relieved. Oi. Sophia then glared at her. What's going on? There's a limit on how much raw magic plants can absorb. Mera finally answered her. Knowing our aura here, she definitely would have tried to brute force more into them. I absolutely would have. The wolf in question nodded a few times, which could have led to some unforeseeable results. The female overseer continued. Plants happily accept more than the limit because they don't know better for obvious reasons, but it comes with some side effects. All sorts of mutations can or will happen. The final product might have nothing in common with the original once fully grown. This will also happen if there's too much in close proximity. Mutations? Steph's ears perked up while her tail started wagging. Details, please. Well, it's relatively random. Mera wasn't sure what to tell her. Pretty much anything can happen. It can fuse with other plants and create some sort of impossible hybrid, for example. Occasionally, it can even happen that the plants stop being plants. Huh? The dog girl tilted her head in confusion. You don't mean it becomes alive now, do you? That's not what I meant. She shook her head. There's a high chance it mineralizes instead. Too much raw magic can cause the plants to crystallize during their growth. To be fair, it's very pretty, though. Wait. The voices of Chloe and the sisters overlapped. Are you telling me that creating a crystal forest is possible? Their dreams were one and the same. Yes. The teal fox nodded. Judging by those sparkling eyes, I said too much, huh? Let's go. The trio got very loud. Why are you three so giddy? Ari didn't understand their excitement. Why aren't you? The trio stared at her. Didn't you hear what she just said? Yeah, something about crystallized plants? She tilted her head. Why aren't you excited, then? Chloe and the sisters were still completely unionizing. The possibilities are endless. Again, why are you? The jaguar also decided to raise her voice. Crystal forests are amazing. Beautiful, too. You've been to one before? Ari still looked confused. I didn't even know they were a thing a few minutes ago. Never been to one. All three shook their heads. Then again, why? She was losing her patience. Movies. Sophia took over the explaining. There are many movies from our old world that feature them. Even from a long time ago. Exactly. Chloe, who had left their world over 20 years ago, nodded. They were common for me, too. So, why exactly should I get excited over something you lot experienced in a different world? Ari slowly shook their head while looking right at the blonde. Movie night later. Sophia had an easy solution for the issue. Oh, now that I think about it, the TV we bought back when Maya and I visited Earth and all the other stuff is still in the mansion in the capital. Not everything. The cat girl shook her head. The toys are already here. I know, the tiger rolled her eyes before continuing. Anyway, let's put a TV here to deal with emergencies like the current one. I wouldn't call it an emergency, but whatever, Ari gave up. Speaking of your old world, Kinnear seemed to have gotten curious about something and faced the blonde. I heard that you offered your family to come over here, too. Ah. She scratched her cheek in return. I did do that, yeah. Well, I advertised the new world quite strongly, I guess. They still haven't decided, though. It's quite the decision, after all. Something like that usually takes some time, after all. No, it doesn't. Steph shook her head while she looked at her sister after she noticed her glance and pronunciation of the word usually. Easiest decision of my life. I was talking about normal people. Ah, I see. The dog girl was surprisingly okay with that response. Why are those sisters so self-aware yet ridiculous? Ari could only roll her eyes once more. Anyway, back to the family. Sophia ignored her. I'm sure it's a hard decision for them. Lots to consider and all that. Sorry aside, Mom and Dad were useful members of the society and all that, after all. True, didn't really apply to us. Steph could see why they would hesitate. Exactly. The blonde nodded before continuing. All of this is hard to comprehend, too. She simply gestured at everything around her. It's not something I can or will push them into either. Oh. I just had an idea. Oh, no. Ari had a bad feeling. Shush. She lightly glared at her before continuing. I could show them my domain. Around the cottage, it's already quite presentable. Absolutely no dangers either. Except maybe Maya going on another rampage. Hey. The cat girl didn't like the last part. That way, we wouldn't have to deal with the whole them being regular humans thingy, which would complicate things if anyone sees them. And people say my family background is wild because I'm the princess of a nation. Anna rolled her eyes. I'm the most normal girl in existence, compared to those sisters. Ahaha, the two just scratched their cheeks in response. There was nothing they could say in their defense, after all. What do you think, Kinnear? The blonde then faced him. Well, as long as you don't think about getting their friends, and the family of them, and their friends, and so on, it shouldn't do any damage. No, only those three. I have no attachment to anyone besides that. Same. The sisters were on the same page. Well, none that's strong enough that I want them to be here. Steph was a little more specific. Good. He nodded. Also, I'm okay with giving them the language blessing, but other than that, you're on your own with them this time. In terms of magic and the like. I'd say Mera also pampered Steph more than enough. Fair enough. The duo seemed okay with those terms. Afterward, as the sisters had gotten into it, they discussed some more ideas about their parents for quite a while. Once they came up with something loosely resembling a plan, Sophia made a quick trip to their mansion in the capital to fetch a TV and other necessities to watch a movie or three to teach Ari the amazingness of crystal forests. Chapter 035, Mutated Flora. Kinnear decided to hang out with the group for a little bit, and some interesting things got revealed, like the possibility of feeding plants too much raw magic, which could mutate them or even lead to a whole crystallized forest. The sisters' parents also became a topic, and Sophia had the idea to show her family back on Earth her domain to get them a taste of what a world with magic looks like. Okay, I can see now why you three like the idea of a crystallized forest so much. Ari nodded a few times while she was looking at the TV. The group had decided to watch a few movies together, namely fantasy ones that feature all kinds of magical sights, because Chloe and the sisters wanted to show the jaguar the beauty and romance of those sparkly forests. I'm glad you understand. Steph, Sophia, and the pink fox sounded quite smug while they smiled at her. Let's go. Anna also seemed quite excited about it. It's so beautiful. What she said. The wolves, too, seemed to be fans of the idea. I do agree that it's very pretty. Maya also liked it. Though, I think that those glowing forests are very much cooler. Plants that light up are super fun. A compelling argument. Steph agreed with her. I think I might actually like that one better, too. Bioluminescence is so cool. By the way, bioluminescence is a very common mutation. Mera smiled at the two. Oh. They loved to hear it. Let's try it out the next time we have time. The dog girl gave Maya a thumbs up. Sounds like a plan. The cat girl was in on it. You two alone together? Sophia raised an eyebrow after hearing this. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Oh, jealous? Smirking at her sister, Steph then put her arm around Maya's neck, who happened to be sitting next to her when they were watching the movies. Not exactly. The blonde shook her head. It's more like that you two are by far the biggest perverts in our group, and I'm not sure if I want to find out what you'd come up with when alone together. She's got a point. Anna, Ari, and Chloe agreed with her. Do you think that little of us? Steph and Maya were hurt. Yes. The trio just nodded. Let's come up with the most perverted thing possible. Exactly what I was thinking just now. The dog and cat girl started pouting while they looked at each other. How about a tentacle forest? Oh. I can't say I'm surprised about that. Sophia rolled her eyes. Also, why was that the first thing you came up with? She didn't like her suggestion. If it helps, Ari joined the conversation. I like what I saw about the crystal forests in those movies, but glowing plants also seem a little cooler to me. I'd like to help make such a place instead. Of course. Maya smiled at her. We naturally welcome the third biggest pervert in our group to our illustrious endeavor. Steph's mood seemed to be excellent. It's threesome time. I'll ignore the last part because I know you by now, but what's that other part supposed to mean? She didn't enjoy that accusation. You know what I mean. The dog just smiled at her. I don't. Well, Anna raised her hand while a slight blush appeared on her face. Don't you dare to finish your sentence. The jaguar got loud. Hee hee. Steph and Maya gave her a thumbs up. Shush. Ari didn't like that either. Well, I'm not sure how adding another pervert to the mix would help with the situation, but I guess you at least know where to draw the line. Sophia scratched her cheek. I guess? I hate you all so much. She then turned her head away because she didn't want to talk with them anymore. I definitely want to be on the Crystal Forest team, though. Anna faced her fellow tiger. The glowy stuff looks fun, and I want to see it once it's done, but crystals are way cooler. You're more than welcome to join me. Sophia smiled at her. I'm totally coming with you too, as well. Chloe joined the tiger faction. Same reason as our princess, too. The more the merrier. The blonde naturally was happy to have her. The girls continued to make plans for a little longer and also watched yet another movie together, but eventually decided that the day had been long enough. Once Kinnear headed back, everyone got ready to sleep and rest. Oh. On the following morning, while everyone was in the cottage's living room, Sophia suddenly raised her voice. Kinnear forgot to give me one of his stupid fancy shrines. I wouldn't be so relieved just yet. Mera looked at her. Knowing him, he's probably busy preparing something as obnoxious as possible for us right now. I'm absolutely certain he is. The blonde agreed with her. I won't ever let him back into my domain again, though. Good thinking. She sounded impressed by her solution. I think I might join you on that plan. Hee hee. By the way, noticing they were done with the topic, Steph spoke up. I was wondering what the plan for today is. More of our own projects? The special forests, more traveling in the normal world? Or, do you want to fetch our family? She tilted her head during the last part while facing her sister. I'd definitely say that the family thing will be a topic for another day. She strongly shook her head a few times. Mera, how complicated is it to create the mutated forests we got so excited over yesterday? Just use an obscene amount of your internal magic, and you're good to go. She smiled at her. I'm good at that. Sophia liked the requirements. We know. Many people present had the same reaction. There are some smaller issues with your plan, though. The teal fox informed her about a problem. You still remember that I said those mutations are random, right? You all got super excited, split up in groups and whatnot, but there's no way to tell what sort of mutation will happen. Not even that it is going to happen. Ah. The girls definitely had forgotten about it. There are certain plants and biomes that are more likely to mutate in the desired direction, though. As usual, Mera couldn't help but spoil them with information. Swamps, mossy areas, and other places with natural high humidity often mutate towards bioluminescence. Basically, places where mushrooms grow well, which also have the highest chance to develop a glow under high magic conditions. For crystallization or fossilization, depending on your goal, hard-leaved plants and trees found in hotter regions are prone to it. They aren't able to absorb a high amount of magic, so there's a high chance they mineralize instead of mutating. For example, the flora of the monster country of the regular world works rather well in that regard. Oh. The blonde nodded a few times. Very useful information. The monster country is super far away, though. While I want to go there again, it'll take a while. Anna, are there any swamps on the way we're currently traveling? No idea. The princess shook her head. I roughly know where the notable cities in our kingdom are and what's special about them, but I don't know much about the geographical properties and biomes outside of the immediate area around the capital. It's the same for me. Ari's knowledge wasn't any more detailed either. Ah. It wasn't what she wanted to hear. Didn't we cross a massive swamp during our travels? Chloe eventually joined the conversation and faced Faye with a questioning expression. That was over 5 years ago, you know? She looked back at her. I doubt that place would be overly helpful for you impatient lot. True. A lot of them agreed with that statement. Also, the foal continued. I don't think you need a full swamp for your project. Any swampy area would work to get a sample for your experiments inside the domain here, right? She looked at Mera during the last bit. Yes. She nodded. Though, it might be beneficial to get a few extra samples, because there's a high chance you need multiple tries to get the desired outcome. Even that won't be a problem. Faye didn't see an issue with that. Swampy areas are everywhere. I can guarantee you that we will find one in not even an hour after we're back to traveling. I like that confidence. Sophia smiled at her. You better make sure to sniff one out if we don't, though. Sure. You're oddly cooperative with our idiocy, Faye. Chloe raised an eyebrow. What is going on? She got suspicious. I don't care if Sophia's domain turns into a freaky attraction, so I'm all in favor if you live out your fantasies here instead of the regular world. Ah, I see. The pink fox could get behind her reasoning. That makes sense. Let's go. Steph had enough of the talking and decided it was time to head out. And so, after a rough plan for the day had been formed, everyone got ready, and the group left Sophia's domain to resume their travels, now with the daily goal of finding a swamp or swampy area. Chapter 036, Swampy Area. The group learned about plant mutations and crystallization and how it can be done by exposing flora to too much raw magic. Sophia and the other girls got very excited about this and wanted to try it out immediately. Unfortunately, getting a specific mutation is not easy and needs a particular biome or type of plant to increase the chances for it to happen. Because of that, they decided to search for a swamp because that apparently increases the likelihood of a bioluminescent mutation. Oh, there really is a shrine of Kinnear here now. The group had returned to the place where they had left off in the regular world the other day using Sophia's portals, and Ari immediately noticed a certain change in the environment. Yup. The blonde nodded. That's the one Mera hid in the jungle she gave me. She lightly glared at the overseer before continuing. And no, I'm not going to do anything with that. It's going to stay here. She pointed at the shrine in the middle of nowhere. I wasn't going to say anything. The jaguar shook her head. Actually, there are many shrines of Kinnear out in the wild that no one can explain why they're in those specific places. Yours will fit right in. Good. Sophia was glad about not having gotten a lecture. She then looked at Mera again. Could it be that I wasn't the first one with the idea of booting his shrines out of their domains? Have other overseers, or people with their own domains, done the same? His shrines being in places that make no sense is quite suspicious, after all. I would not be surprised if that's the case. The teal fox couldn't deny it. Personally, I sealed the area around the shrine, but I can see this option being viable, too. If you sealed it, why did you give it to me? The blonde raised her voice. Again, because I thought it would be funny. She just smiled at her. Gore. Sophia growled briefly at her before turning her attention to Faye. You have 56 minutes left to find us a swampy area. 55, Steph slightly corrected her. Shush. The fool glared at the sisters. You know that hurrying me will only lead to the exact opposite of what you want. I mean, you did sound quite confident when you announced it. Chloe faced her mother. You have to follow up on it now. Huh. Faye let out a sigh. Having raised you, I really should have learned how to keep my mouth shut by now. You didn't, though. Steph smirked at her. And so, let's go. One day, when no one's watching, I'm going to set you on fire. The fool did not appreciate the dog's comment. You will not. Chloe did not appreciate her comment either. I absolutely will. She stared right back at her daughter. Well, it wouldn't be the first time, so it's fine. Steph didn't seem bothered by it. Huh? Chloe's eyes turned wide as she turned to look at her girlfriend. Faye's been teaching me the correct usage of magic, right? She smiled at her. Mom's either a lot worse at controlling her magic than she claims to be, or all those times my hair and tail got singed during the fire sessions were on purpose. Hey! Mom glared at the violet dog. You're 100 years too early to call me that. Oh. An actual number. Steph's expression turned the smuggest yet. I can work with that. Gore. She just growled at her. I love how well they get along. Chloe had her very own interpretation of the exchange. I also would have set her on fire a couple of times. Ari sided with Faye. Thank you very much. She was happy to have at least one supporter. Anyway, let's go and get over with it. You're so soft on them. Mera liked how she caved in at the end, anyway. I don't want to hear that from you. Hee hee. The group finally got going and left the Kinnear shrine in the middle of nowhere behind. Navigating the area for a while, Faye eventually led them into a densely grown forest and kept going in there for about 20 minutes. I told you so. Sounding even more smug than Steph earlier, the red foal gestured at a murky green pond in the middle of the forest, which was surrounded by a swamp-like area, trees covered in moss and overgrown with mushrooms. Oh. The sisters and Chloe simply started clapping their hands. Why is it so hot around here? Maya noticed something else of interest. Well, not exactly hot, but quite a bit warmer than it should be. Mushrooms aren't supposed to grow like that during spring, right? The trees are already fully covered in leaves, too. She made a slight pause before continuing. Okay, we just grew a fully overgrown jungle in Sophia's domain, but that's a different topic. That's a good question. The jaguar nodded a few times. Everything else, outside the domain, was just starting to grow or blossom. Faye, explanation, please. Chloe then faced her mother with expectant eyes. Why me? You're the one who guided us to this place. Steph looked at her with the same expression. It's only natural, no? Not being able to say anything against that, Faye started surveying the area for a little while. It doesn't feel like there's any excess magic that could be a cause for the elevated temperature. She walked around for a bit longer and then looked down at her paws. The ground around here feels a lot warmer than usual. There might be some sort of increased thermal activity in this region, and it's strong enough in this region to increase the temperature above ground enough to make the current state possible. Sounds like it would make sense. The blonde nodded a few times. Maya, write that down and add it to the list of things I want to do in my domain. She smiled at her secretary. Will do. The cat girl nodded, but she had no intention of writing anything down, just like she always does when urged to do so. Her job as a secretary wasn't a mutual agreement, after all. Thermal activity? Anna tilted her head. Wait. She then got loud. As in a volcanic area? We're still super close to the capital, though. Isn't that dangerous? Oh. Chloe and the sisters had the same reaction again. Hey. The princess glared at them. No getting excited over that. I highly doubt it. Aura addressed the concerned-looking tiger. There are no signs of volcanic activities around here. No earthquakes, no geysers, smells of escaping gases from the underground, or any fissures in the earth that would indicate something busy underground. She tried to calm her down. I see. It worked on the princess. My guess, Fen continued. I'd say that there's a huge underground lake in the area, which reaches deep enough to touch hotter rock. It's active enough to heat up the area, but there's no pressure because there are none of the things Aura mentioned. It should be harmless. Good. You two sure know a lot about this. Sophia was impressed by the wolves. Because volcanoes are awesome. The two synced up perfectly while seeming to be quite excited all of a sudden. I remember now. Faye, on the other hand, sounded rather tired for some reason instead. Back when I was last traveling with them, we visited a volcanic area with an active volcano, and they got really into it. It was rather tiring. That was the best. The wolves seemed to remember it, too. Let's go and find a volcano now. Let's go. The sisters and Chloe, once again, were directly on board. But not here. Anna got loud again. Otherwise, count me in. Is there really no chance that this area has actual volcanic activity? Ari, the level-headed one, wanted to ensure the capital was in no direct danger. There's not no chance, but it's highly unlikely. Fen faced her. There's no place in the world where there is no chance, but the signs indicate heavily against it. Good. Want to make sure it's safe? The blonde smirked at the royal couple. How? They just tilted their heads. Hee hee. Sounding extra smug, she then lifted her hand. Immediately after, the whole area started to rumble, before a massive hole appeared before them. Underground adventure. The tiger pointed at the pit. Upon closer inspection, rather than just a vertical hole, it seemed more like a tunnel, seemingly going on forever into the depths at a slight angle. You're the absolute best. Steph, the dog girl, looked very moved by her sister's digging skills. Best adventure yet. What she said. The wolves quickly agreed with her. Oh, I really liked that massive underground lake beneath the capital. Maya also was a fan. It was super beautiful, and it would be fun if there's something similar here. There's a lake under the capital? The eyes of the princess turned wide after hearing this news. Yeah, it's part of the dungeon there. The cat girl answered her without thinking. There's a dungeon? Let's go. Not wanting to deal with that, Maya simply started walking and entered the newly created cave. Let's go. The dogs, even though two of them were wolves, immediately ran after her. Wait a moment. Anna also followed them. Faye sounded even more tired. Adventure. Her daughter was the exact opposite and urged all the remaining people of the group to also enter the tunnel. Before Sophia followed suit, she collected a few samples of the swampy area for her domain to experiment on later before she and the rest finally disappeared into the newly created hole made by her. Chapter 037, Underground Tunneling. Faye guided the group to a swampy area, just like she promised before, but the main attraction turned out to be something different. The area was unusually warm, especially the ground below them, and the full fox theorized some sort of thermal activity beneath. Because of that, Anna was concerned that it might be an undiscovered volcanic area, which could endanger the nearby capital. The wolves reassured her that it would be unlikely as there were no other signs of it. However, Sophia still turned it into an adventure and created a tunnel leading underground with her magic to explore what really was going on in the area below. This sure is something. Ari curiously looked around at the grayish-brown and perfectly round walls of the tunnel that led them deeper and deeper underground, while their surroundings were dimly lit by light-based magic. I love it. Steph sounded even more excited over it. The overly present dog side of the girl was having a grand time. I want to continue digging the tunnel. Sure thing. Sophia just smiled at her, and the overly active and wagging tail attached to her sister. By the way, Faye joined the conversation. Am I allowed to crash this party, or shall we continue this journey in blissful ignorance? If you want to ensure there's no volcanic activity and the like. I know that we'd need to dig multiple kilometers deep to have a chance to find magma. We'd also run into some slight issues long before that. There might be some hints like fissures, tunnels, or steam, or I don't know what. It's not like the blonde was running on a plan right now, after all. I want to find out the reason for the temperature, too. There also might be some other fun stuff. Like that lake that got mentioned before. Alright, fair enough. She hadn't expected such a reasonable reply. Speaking of the lake. Anna raised her voice while she was swirling around Maya. What did you mean earlier by saying there's an underground lake beneath the capital? More importantly, you mentioned a dungeon, too. A dungeon. I'd like to redirect you to Fen for that. The catgirl simply gestured at the wolf. He's the one who built that dungeon under the capital, after all. For the record, I was rather upset when I found out, because he promised me not to do that. Hey. Fen growled at her. Was that really necessary? Also, Aura helped me a lot. Was that really necessary? The female wolf rolled her eyes in response. You made a dungeon? The tall tiger zoomed in on him. That's so cool. Her eyes started sparkling. Right. The male wolf relaxed again. I forgot that the princess is fun. He had expected a scolding. I mean, the royal side in me is concerned over how that sounds, but... She made a slight pause. I'm too curious to care about that at the moment. Do you remember how I mentioned that one of my portals leads to a dungeon? Sophia was the one who answered her. We never got to explore it with you all as planned because of the winterly hibernation, but that dungeon is under the capital. Actually, the start of it is behind a secret door in the basement of our mansion. The wolves started building it the day we moved in there. Seriously? Yes. Fen nodded. It's also not a regular dungeon. There are no monsters or dangerous animals and the like. Even though it's quite far underground, we didn't want to take any risks in that regard for something being under the capital. Thank you very much. Ari was the most relieved about that. It's more like a massively giant maze. The wolf continued. There are some traps, though, so it's not fully without danger. Sounds great. Anna liked it a lot. The general design is a lot like this tunnel, though. Aura gestured around them. Just a lot of soil, so if you want to see it, it might be an activity for a slow day, and not when we're traveling. Okay. Once the topic of the capital dungeon was taken care of, the group continued their underground travels, now with Steph in the lead. The dog girl really wanted to dig some holes, after all. Oh? After around an hour of digging, Steph seemed to have noticed something. Is it just me, or is it getting wetter around here? She pointed at the walls of the newly created tunnel bit and how it had water literally running down on it. I mean, it was always a little moist, groundwater and stuff, but that's a little excessive, isn't it? Maybe we're getting closer to that rumored lake? Chloe, who was right next to her, got closer to one of the walls, touched it, and took a guess. Whoa, it's like a waterfall. Or our overexcited dog dug right under a part of the lake, and the tunnels are going to collapse any minute now from the water pressure. Don't be so negative. The pink fox didn't like her mother's guess of the situation. It is a lot of water, though. Aura could see why the foal made that comment. A lot of water. Fen also agreed with her and gestured towards the end of the downward-sloping tunnel they were in. A lot of water had collected there, and a part of the tunnel had already flooded a few minutes after Steph had created it. Ah. Chloe noticed that Faye might have had a point. Isn't that kinda bad? Ari didn't like this turn of events. No Faye shook her head. It's very bad. Eh? The jaguar got even louder. We'd probably get crushed to death by the water mass if the tunnel caves in. Why are you so calm, then? Ari was properly panicking by now. Because there's a pretty easy solution for this. Saying so, Faye turned around and walked up the sloped tunnel. There was always a little water, but these masses only started showing up after we reached this depth. If we stay above it, we should be safe. That's true. Noticing the easy solution, the jaguar immediately grabbed Anna's hand and dragged her up the tunnel to where the fox was. The others also quickly did the same. Alrighty. Once everyone was on higher ground, Steph clapped her hands. As it seems like I was about to end us all, does anyone else take the lead now? Absolutely. Finn jumped at the chance. He wasn't concerned by the possible almost near-death experience and just wanted to continue digging. A canine is a canine, after all, be it a dog or a wolf. While technically part of the same family, the fox side of the group didn't seem as enthusiastic about it, though. By the way, while the male wolf was getting ready to lead the group, Faye got a little closer to Mera next to her. You know exactly what's happening around us, don't you? Sure. The overseer smiled at her. I'm not telling, though. It would ruin the fun. I figured as much. She just rolled her eyes in return. Finn led the group for another hour and created a whole network of tunnels to find something interesting and/or get some energy out of his system. Then, after a little while longer, his newest digging activity finally uncovered something of interest. There we go. He sounded quite happy with himself after his last use of magic dug right into a massive cave. It was hard to see what was going in there because it was only dimly lit from the light magic inside the tunnel, but it seemed to be above the size of the forest above ground where they found the swampy area. Good job. Sophia gave the wolf a small pat while she walked beside him to get a better look at the cave. Let's see. Saying so, the blonde used her own magic to lighten up the whole cave. I guess that's the place we were looking for, huh? Now that there was more light, the sheer scale of the cave was much clearer. It was almost perfectly circular, with a diameter of about 2 kilometers. Fenn had dug through the cave walls at an elevated place, so the group had a perfect view of the lake that covered the entire floor beneath. Whoa, it's actually steaming. Steph also got closer and made an interesting discovery when she looked at the water. Not much, so it doesn't seem to be too hot, but it's definitely a little steamy. It's rather warm around here, too. Seriously? Anna also joined them to see it. Whoa. Wait, isn't that a bad sign? She then stared at Fenn with a complicated expression. I don't think so. He shook his head. It seems a little warm, but nowhere close to the sources of geysers, for example. In an actual active volcanic area, the water reservoir would be boiling, and we'd be cooked alive by the rising steam alone. That's good. She wasn't sure how to feel about his explanation. If I were to take a guess, Aura continued. I'd say that this lake is really deep and touches deeper rock layers, which is hot enough to heat it. However, it is not touching magma or something else that is active. Otherwise, as Finn said, we would have turned into steamed buns already. Maya, I want steamed buns for dinner. Sophia liked the sound of that. Me, too. Steph felt the same. I don't like how you came to this based on the current conversation, but, the cat girl scratched her cheek. I do like the idea, though. Afterward, once the dinner plans were finalized, the group decided to get closer to the water by digging down through the cave walls to get a better look at it and maybe notice a thing or two more. Chapter 038, Hot Spring. The group had success during their underground exploration and found a massive cave, including a lake. The water was special, too, as it was quite warm to the point where it was ever so slightly steaming. It didn't seem to be related to a volcano, as the water was neither boiling nor were they cooked alive by the steam. Oh ho, it's actually quite a bit hotter than I thought. The group had reached the water, and Steph curiously put her hand into it. Kinda like an extra warm bath, I'd say. Really? Liking the sound of that, Sophia also touched the water. The temperature's perfect. Maya tilted her head while watching the sisters and then looking at the lake. The water's pretty milky, the light steam and this mineral smell in the area. This whole thing's just a massive underground hot spring, isn't it? 10 points to our cat. Mera smiled at her. That's exactly what it is, a huge thermal spring. The forest above is flourishing to such a degree simply because of the size and the closeness to the surface, which lets enough warmth reach it. Hot spring? Hearing that, the dog girl got even more excited. Immediately after, she removed her jacket and started unbuttoning her shorts while her tail wagged vigorously. Oi! The blonde karate chopped her head and stopped her sister just before she fully pulled down her shorts. What? She just looked at her sister. It's a hot spring. Let's go. Steph reached for her already half-off shorts again. We're all friends, so it's fine. And with that, on top of a short smile at the male wolf, her shorts fell on the ground. Also, while Finn's the only straight individual and male in our group, which would make me wary in the old world, he's like the least horny member, by far, and we're not exactly compatible, are we? She then grabbed the hem of her panties and was ready to get rid of them, too. Not only are we incompatible, but I also have zero interest in you. Finn took a quick glance at the slightly extra exposed dog and then shook his head. Zero? She looked back at him as she stopped stripping for a moment. That hurts. Well, I mean, your tail is very pretty, and your ears are amongst the cutest canine ears I've seen, but all your furless human bits are an absolute no-go for me. He took a better look at the almost naked girl and let out a huff. Not a chance. Good enough. Steph was happy with the clarification on his side. White, huh? During their exchange, Maya's eyes immediately fell on a specific something that was about to hit the floor. I would have expected something bolder from you. They're my comfy panties. Steph showed her a cheeky smile. Perfect for moving around a lot. The other types of panties are reserved for other types of events. Fair enough. She could get behind her logic. There's a bit of an issue, though. The dog tilted her head. I'm not going in there. Maya pointed at the gigantic lake with the milky white water and then all around her. I'm not in the mood to go into water of which I can't see the bottom inside a massive cave we reached through self-made tunnels. What she said. Ari felt the same. A shallow, open-air hot spring, count me in, but this here is a massive turn-off. She also just pointed all around her. You're no fun. Looking incredibly disappointed, Steph kneeled down to grab her shorts before fixing her panties and slid into them again before also putting on her jacket once more. Ignoring her sister, the blonde kept staring at the water while seemingly thinking about something. What are you up to? Maya knew that look on her girlfriend's face. I'm currently in the middle of having an idea. Why even bother coming up with something if no one wants to enjoy an amazing hot spring? Steph was already properly depressed over it. That's why I'm trying to come up with a solution for that. Let's go. The dog's mood swings could be even stronger than those of the older sister. Unless you take this hot spring and put it somewhere else, there's nothing you can come up with. Ari slowly shook her head while looking at the blonde. That's the plan. Sophia smiled at her. Mera, is there anything dangerous or unhealthy in this water? Nope, it's perfectly fine. The overseer smiled at her. It's, in fact, one of the better hot spring sources I've seen so far. Perfect. She seemed to be happy about her evaluation. Okay, give me 5 minutes. Saying so, the short tiger created 2 portals to her domain for some reason and stepped through the right one. Oh, I think I know what she's up to. Chloe started smiling. That's going to be fun. Alrighty. Roughly 5 minutes had passed, and Sophia reunited with the group after passing through the left portal. I'm almost done. Done with what? Steph had trouble following her. Give me a moment. She then focused her attention on the 2 portals and moved one of them right in the middle and roughly 50 meters above the lake by using her magic. Perfect. Then, the blonde also moved the second portal on top of the water, but she submerged it instead of putting it up. A few moments later, the milky white water started gushing out of the portal floating above the lake. It's working. What is working? The dog girl was getting impatient. I created a big hole in my domain where I put the submerged portal on the bottom. She pointed at the lake in front of them. I also made an overflow around it, which follows a short river and feeds into the second portal over there. Sophia pointed at the floating one above the lake where the water was gushing out. That way, it gets constantly replaced by fresh and hot water. She needed a moment. Wait, does that mean you have your own natural hot spring in your domain now? Yes. Her sister gave her a thumbs up. We need to do some redesigning, but that's exactly it. Awesome. Oh. Maya also seemed interested. If the hot spring's in your domain, and made cutely, it's a different story. I agree. Ari nodded. If it's not in a cave and I can stand in it, I'm in favor, too. Let's go. The sisters unionized. Anyway, while I'm also looking forward to that, now that I know this place is a lot less dangerous, which is a good thing, it took away much of the excitement. Anna was glad there wasn't any volcanic activity, but it also made things a bit more boring. I don't appreciate the disrespect towards this amazing underground hot spring. Steph shook her head a couple of times while looking at the princess. I think this hole is great. It gave us the chance to build our own private hot springs in Sophia's domain. What more do you want? She stared back at her. From now on, once it's done, we can take a dip in it every single day and then take it easy in the cottage. It's a win-win, so shut up. I guess that's a compromise I can live with. She still seemed ever so slightly unhappy. You just like holes too much. I love holes. Steph got loud. They went silent for a moment. Should we head back to the surface? Ari didn't want to deal with whatever the situation was heading towards and decided to change the topic. I'm very much in favor of this suggestion. Faye felt the same. Sure. Sophia nodded. I've gotten everything I wanted and more. She was in a good mood. Steph eventually also agreed to leave the cave behind, and the group started to retrace their way through the many tunnels Fan and the dog girl created on their way down. While they were heading back, the blonde kept sealing the tunnels using earth-based magic. After all, she didn't want anyone to ever come across the cave and her portals. Finally, daylight again. The jaguar seemed to be glad to be out of the tunnels. It looks like we still have a few hours left before it gets dark. Steph glanced at the sun through the treetops above them and then looked at the group. Should we keep going for a little longer? Absolutely. Sophia decided to answer for the entire group. I won't accept any other replies either. Sure. No one seemed to have anything against it in the first place. Where to go, though? Chloe looked around for a moment. We got a little derailed today, but how do we get back on track? Were we ever on any sort of tracks? What tracks? The sisters got incredibly confused. Okay, you win that round. The fox had nothing to add there. Alright, let's go that way. She then energetically pointed to her left. Which direction is this? Sophia leaned over to Maya. Southwest-ish. She looked at the sun's position for a little bit before answering. Let's go. The blonde seemed to be okay with the direction. I was concerned you wanted to go north, towards the cold, but that's totally fine. I forgot about that. Chloe looked mad at herself. Too late. Not giving her a chance to change her mind, Sophia immediately started walking in the direction the fox girl had pointed. Not wanting to be left behind, the others quickly followed after her, and their group continued their exploration for a little while longer. Chapter 039, Tired. Sophia connected the underground hot springs with her domain to build something nice with it there. Everyone was looking forward to soaking in their very own hot spring next to the cottage very soon. Once they returned to the surface and noticed that the sun was still up, they decided to keep exploring for a little while longer. Oh, yay, another plane. After walking for a good while, Steph sounded ever so slightly bored. Anna, the area around the capital is way too monotone. And how is that my fault? She looked back at her. You're the princess of this place, right? And what does that have to do with anything? No idea. The dog girl smiled at her. Gore. She didn't like that. We're still mostly in the right direction of Sava, though. It is one of the cities on the list that was given to us by father. Things might get more interesting once we're close to that. Let's go. Steph got motivated again. Sure. They kept going for another hour or two, but once they reached a small forest after the sun had fully set, the group once more returned to Sophia's domain to spend the night there. However, Faye and Mera decided to head over to the Teal's domain for a while. Fen wanted to see Aura's pine forest, so they went there, leaving the girls on their own for the time being. Alright, hot springs time. The very second they arrived at the cottage on the other side, Steph immediately got loud again and sprinted into the jungle around it. I think someone didn't get powered out enough today. Ari rolled her eyes. Though, I don't think I've ever seen her powered out. Because that has never happened before. Sophia scratched her cheek. I doubt it's even possible. I tried many times. Chloe shook her head. It is impossible. Are the things you tried the things I assume we're talking about? Maya smiled at the fox. It's not like I can even try making her tired by running around with her, do I? I'd just die in the process. She had no idea why the cat girl even asked. Of course, it's that. Hee hee. Shouldn't we go after her? Anna pointed in the direction Steph had disappeared in. Who knows what kinds of hot springs she's going to create if she's unsupervised. Good call. Everyone agreed with her, and the girls also left the mansion to stop the dog girl. There you finally are. Noticing their arrival, Steph smiled at the girls. Let's get going already. Do you have a plan? Sophia lightly tilted her head while looking at her sister. When do we ever have a plan? She looked back at her. Let's just make something and see how it turns out. And here's our daily reminder that those very different-looking girls are indeed sisters. Ari spoke out everyone's thoughts. Remember, it has to look cute. Otherwise, I don't want to go into the hot springs. I need to be in the right mood to get naked. Maya stared at her for a moment. Sometimes, you're worse than Sophia when it comes to speaking without thinking first. Your ambiguity is something else. The jaguar just now noticed it. You all are rubbing off on me too much. You've been like that since the day we became friends. The blonde shook her head. Just ask Anna how many misunderstandings were caused. Don't remind me of that. The princess didn't want to hear it. Ugh. Ari had nothing more to defend herself with. So, what's your plan to make it look cute? Steph looked at the jaguar. What do we need to do to get you naked? Shut up. She didn't appreciate this. Anna, how do we get Ari out of her clothes the fastest? Not having gotten an answer, the dog girl faced the princess. I'm sure you'd know. I do know how, but I'm definitely not telling you. The tiger glared at her. It's of no importance here, either. Anyway. The jaguar had enough. It doesn't take much to get me. She suddenly paused mid-sentence, shook her head, and continued. Ahem, making it look cute and comfy shouldn't be too hard. You're the best. Maya loved how she had immediately followed up with something without thinking again before correcting herself. Shush. Her cheeks turned slightly red. The most important thing for the hot springs is to be comfy and sit down. It shouldn't be too deep. Not being able to see the ground, like in the cave, is a complete no-go. Some sort of fencing or bushes around us to feel less exposed would be nice, too. I know we're the only ones around here, but the feeling is important. I agree with that. The cat girl nodded a few times. Also, why I'd prefer a view at the open sky, as there is no sky in the domain right now, I'd prefer it to be under the tree crowns. The all-white is not good for the mood. Fair enough. Sophia didn't blame her for that. After all, she wasn't the biggest fan of the white part of her domain either. Until I managed to create an actual sky, I feel the same, too. It sounds like we have a plan. Steph got loud again. Let's go. Being concerned that the dog girl might actually explode from being too excited, the girls got going and started the construction of their very own private hot springs. The group was at it for about 2 hours, but they eventually managed to turn their project into something respectable. Relaxing in the water, Maya let out a comfortable sigh. I have to admit, this was completely worth it. Afterward, she submerged her body a little deeper in the water, almost hiding the fact that she was fully naked at the moment, thanks to the fact that the water wasn't clear and more of a milky white color. Yes. Ari felt the same as she stretched her arms over her head while looking around. The pool they were in was about 3 by 4 meters wide and, judging by how much of their bodies were sticking out while sitting in it, about half a meter deep. On the short side opposite of them, there was a 1 meter high and wide waterfall feeding fresh hot water into the pool, which was lined with flat stones all around it. On the longer side was one little indentation each, where the water could overflow, which flowed downhill through a small river before it eventually disappeared below a hedge. The hedge was about 2 meters high and went around the entire hot springs to provide an extra bit of privacy. It's so comfy. The jaguar finished stretching and then leaned against Anna next to her while resting the side of her head on the tiger's breast. What exactly is comfy here? Steph looked right at her. The water or the pillow? She naturally didn't fail to notice what she was doing. Yes. Ari smiled at her, which then turned into a bit of a smirk as she rubbed her head against the super soft and comfy pillow. So envious. Steph didn't like her smirk. Is what I would have said a year ago. Then, she looked to her right, where her own pillowy girlfriend was also relaxing in the water, though only the upper half of her breast, shoulder, head, and a third of her tail were visible in the milky water. I have my own, after all. No pillows for you. Chloe did not appreciate being reduced to that. Yes, I agree with my similarly endowed friend. Anna smiled at the pink fox, before peeling Ari away from her chest. Hey! The duo, in need of resting their tired heads against something soft, got upset. Shush! How does it feel to only be the third most perverted member in the group for a change? Sophia looked at Maya next to her, who was surprisingly calm, all things considered. To be fair, she also was using the blonde's chest as a pillow, just as Ari had a moment ago, but she had just naturally done it without being smug, and it wasn't because she had nothing to be smug about, either. Sophia was undoubtedly the smaller tiger in all areas, but she still was a very comfortable pillow. Do you want me to? The catgirl's expression turned mischievous as she turned and lifted her head to smile at her. Nah, I'm good. Sophia lightly shook her head. Good. She got comfortable against the blonde's chest and sighed again. Today's cuddly mood, not horny. Even though there's so much to look at because we're all naked together? She then gestured at the other 4 while taking her time looking at Anna, Ari, and Chloe. There is a lot to see and be horny over. I guess I'm just the 4th most perverted one today, huh? Maya's voice turned a little smug. Ah. She scratched her cheek. Though, you can't blame me, can you? Sophia pointed at her naked friends again. I'm not the issue here. You're usually way hornier over much less. What's wrong? I'm not always horny, okay? She sounded ever so slightly displeased. All 5 of them went silent momentarily before unionizing. Yeah. They were honestly shocked by this revelation. Are you getting sick? This was the only possible explanation for them. Don't worry, I just got tired over building the hot springs. I'll be back to normal after a good sleep. She started smiling again. Tomorrow, when we're in the water together again, I'll be your usual beloved pervert. By the way, I just decided that this hot spring bath will be part of our daily evening routine from now on. I want to enjoy the amazing view every day. Also, we need to come up with a way to make the water a bit less opaque. We're missing out on all the interesting bits below the waterline. That sounds a lot better. The group was relieved that Maya hadn't gotten sick, because it seemed like that for a moment. Once their new evening routine was universally agreed on, the girls relaxed in the water for a little longer before eventually returning to the cottage and getting ready for bed. Maya apparently really needed it, after all. Chapter 040, Biome Checkup. Roughly 2 weeks passed since the girls built their very own private hot spring inside Sophia's dimension, and they had used it every single day since then. It was a more than welcome way to end their day after a lot of walking around in the normal world and going crazy with their biomes in the domain. I'm not sure if I want to see it. Everyone except Mera and Faye were together in the cottage's living room when Sophia shook her head a couple of times. We're so close to reaching Checo, so we should keep the surprises low to not get overstimulated. I could already sense it on my detection magic, too. We're close to reaching what now? Ari looked confused. The city on the list of places Menzer wants us to visit. She looked at her. It was Checo, right? If not, it was basically the same, just with a different letter or so. Cut me some slack. The jaguar paused for a moment. It's Sava. See? Basically the same. There's not even a single letter in there that's the same. She raised her voice. The number of letters is different, too. But both are cities with names made out of letters. What else should they be made of? Stuff. Sophia ran out of arguments, not that she ever had any in the first place. Maya, we'll take her to a doctor once we're in Sava. Ari faced the cat girl. She's good at using healing magic, and we also have some sort of proficiency in it, but I think she needs to see a professional. Something's wrong with her brain. I've been saying that for a long time already. The cat girl nodded. Hey. The blonde started pouting. I'm just a little bad with names. There are limits to that. The duo disagreed with her. Anyway. Sophia decided to change the topic. Steph, I'm not sure I'm ready to see your biome yet. I think we should do it another year, time, I mean. You do know that if you give me a year, the glorious eternal Arctic ice kingdom of the permafrozen tundra will have reached the cottage without your intervention? The short tiger went silent. Did the name get even fancier again? And it got this fancy after just a week. Her expression turned smug while she smirked at her sister. Imagine how many adjectives there will be in a year. Ugh. She hung her head in return. I guess it's really worse to wait here. She gave up. Let's go. Should we take a look at my pine wonderland afterward? Aura looked at her. It's not the warmest place either, because pines work better in temperate conditions, but it's far from actually being cold, and I'm really proud of how it turned out. If I survive Steph's hellscape, I'd love to see that. The blonde wasn't very hopeful about her future. Let's get over with it. Do we have to come, too? Maya and the royal couple were also not overly enthusiastic about it. Yes. Afterward, as there was no getting around it, the group followed the excited-looking dog girl through one of the portals in front of the cottage. All right, time to leave. Exactly 0.5 seconds after they arrived in Steph's biome, Sophia immediately turned around again. Not so fast. Her little sister grabbed her hand to stop her. But. The blonde used her free hand to point all around her. We just escaped snow hell in the capital, I don't want to be back. There wasn't much vegetation, mostly some scattered pine, fir, and spruce trees together with some bushes, but each of the trees was still a few hundred meters high. This wasn't the issue she was having, though. As far as she could look, the entire area was covered in a thick layer of snow, which seemed to be around a full meter deep. Obviously, thanks to that, the temperature was far from ideal for the cat, too. I agree. Ari, Anna, and Maya, the other cats, felt the same as they nodded along with the shorter tiger. It's amazing, isn't it? Chloe didn't have the same opinion as the cats. Look, I agree that it looks very nice around here. Snow is quite pretty, after all. Sophia could admit to that much. Even so, I don't enjoy being cold, so this place isn't for me. No matter how impressive it might be. The cold is so great, though. Fen. Instead of bickering with her sister, the blonde faced the wolf. I have a request. Oh, I think I like that expression. He was a fan of the mischievous grin she was having. I'm sure you'll enjoy this. She gave him a thumbs up. When we acquired the hot springs, I found out that you are quite the volcano enthusiast. You can say that again. He reacted with a big nod. Okay, how about I give you a little task? Sophia smiled at him. You still haven't started your own biome yet, right? You're not asking me to make a volcano, aren't you? Not a good idea? To borrow the catchphrase of our dog, let's go. Fen was a big fan. What he said. Aura sounded just as, if not even more, excited about it. I want a whole volcanic area. Steph raised her hand. Where is this going to happen? Not here, right? Alright? Volcanoes aren't uncommon in a tundra. Aura's voice turned smug. They totally are. The dog got loud. Well, I don't actually know, but I do know when I'm being teased. Hee hee. I leave that decision to our wolves. Sophia glanced at them. I'll give you a portal to wherever you want it to happen. Sounding even more smug, the couple turned to look at Steph. Please. Don't. Steph got on her knees. This place is my baby. I love it and everything about it. Don't worry. The female wolf liked to tease, but she had no intention of being cruel. Though, I want to please our dear owner of this place too. Sophia, please give us some space between here and the jungle. Fenny and I will ensure that the winter wonderland won't get too close to the main area. I can live with that. It was good enough for the blonde. I guess that's fair. The dog also wasn't too unhappy with it. I wonder if I can overwhelm lava with ice. Try it. Aura took the challenge. Don't go and complain if I try and find out how much snow lava can melt at once afterward. By the way, having mixed feelings about where that rivalry would end up in, Sophia changed the topic. How did you even manage to make all that snow and stuff? She pointed all around her. According to Mera, a high concentration of raw magic naturally warms the place. No idea. Her little sister just shrugged. I created a couple of huge ice blocks and started a storm over them using wind-based magic. It turned into a super crazy blizzard and kept going for hours. Afterward, it somehow continued to snow while magic particles in the air also kept increasing for some reason. I don't know why that happened, but I'm very happy about it. The magic particles increased, huh? Sophia took a short side glance at her surroundings. Yeah. Steph nodded. Even magic knows what's good and fun, after all. Ahaha. The blonde scratched her cheek, knowing it was probably exactly that. Should we head to my pine forest now? The female wolf got closer to Sophia. It's amazing there and you'll love the smell. Anything to get out of this freezing hell. The blonde was a big fan of the plan. Sounds fun, too. Wanting to leave the cold as quickly as possible, all the cats immediately stepped through the portal, followed by the wolves and then by Chloe and Steph, who sighed while doing so. There we are. Sounding incredibly proud, Aura stood in front of the group as she gestured around while her tail was wagging in a way that could almost rival Steph's constant wagging full of energy. It's amazing, isn't it? The girls and Fen found themselves in a forest with nothing but pine trees as far as the eye could reach. Each tree was around 200 meters high, and it seemed like there were thousands of them. The ground was dry and littered with dead pine cones and needles, covering everything in a brown layer, making crunchy sounds as one walked through the place. This wasn't the most important part of the forest, though. The smell. Sophia's eyes started sparkling as she sniffed around. This is the best. You definitely weren't kidding when you said you'll make the best smelling forest. Yes. Everyone else agreed with her. Good job. The blonde praised her again. Ehe. Aura seemed genuinely happy about it. I have terrible news for you, though. Sophia then faced her sister while slowly shaking her head. Huh? You lost the contest. What contest? She got confused. For the best biome project. The short tiger started smiling. Ignoring my cat brain and objectively speaking, the winter wonder hell, land you made looks great and is beautifully crafted, but it can't beat the best smelling forest in existence. The place here itself looks immaculate, too. Steph had nothing to say. Her dog nose being extra sensitive, causing her tail to wag even more than usual ever since first smelling the place, didn't help, either. Aura only got even more smug. Afterward, the group continued to enjoy the forest and smell for a good while longer, before eventually heading back to the cottage.